So what we're going to do tonight is watch The Bishop's Wife, and what I'm going to do is give you a little introduction before we get started to give you an idea of what to look for in the movie, things that I think are kind of cool that are going on in the movie, and then afterwards we'll have time for a discussion. But what we're going to do is look at this movie, which has an angel as the main character. And so that may lead us to think of it as a fantasy movie, but I think it is one of the most realistic depictions of both human nature and the nature of the divine that I have ever seen. So that's kind of what we're going to look at. And the movie presumes a belief in God and in angels. And if that's not something that you're comfortable with, that's okay. But because I think the metaphor here is love, okay? And for people, when people like myself, when we talk about God, you can say love. it's interchangeable. And divine love is on display here. So the ideal love that we're all striving for, the thing that we really want to be in our relationships, that's what's being represented here in the character of Dudley, the angel. It's a great name for an angel. So that's what the key things that are in this movie, human nature and the divine nature. And what I want to talk about before we get started is how the movie portrays human nature, because it's really counterintuitive. So, I mean, it's not counterintuitive to think of God or the divine as love, but the way human nature is portrayed here goes against our common perception. Okay, you ready? You know, John knows what I'm going to say. Okay, yes. We commonly think of ourselves as autonomous creatures. It's an accepted Western idea of thinking that human beings are this self-contained, discrete sort of, you know, like there's the outline and all of us is inside our skin. How desire works. I mean, was Homer born with a desire for donuts? Probably not. And if that is how, if human autonomy is the way we all work, it's hard to explain phenomena like this one. This is Prince William and his fiancée announcing their engagement. And she's wearing a department store dress, pretty pricey one though, that went for about $600. And within 12 hours of this announcement, the dresses were not to be found in any store. They were just sold out. Now, that's sort of a strange phenomenon to explain, and difficult to explain if you're caught up in the myth of human autonomy, because where did this sudden desire for this blue dress arise from? Not within these people who bought it. They were obviously imitating the new princess-to-be and her desire for this dress. And in fact, the myth of human autonomy can't explain any other fad or marketing phenomenon or any other craze. Like, I don't know if there's a fad gift for Christmas this year for kids or for adults. I mean, it's probably something that has I in front of it, an iPhone or an iPad or something. But there's things usually, especially around the holidays, that everyone has to have. When my kids were little, it was Cabbage Patch dolls. And I went crazy looking for the Cabbage Patch dolls. And you just couldn't find them. I don't know why. They're in the trash bins now, I'm sure, in everybody's households. But that is, though, the myth that we operate under to try and explain these phenomena. And the truth, of course, is a little bit more complicated. Right? So that what we're talking about is that we're not born fully formed, and we're certainly not born with all of our desires just waiting for us to discover them, you know, somewhere deep inside of us. The truth is that we become ourselves in relationship with others, even to the point of learning what our desires are. We learn them from others. Now, if you hang around the Raven Foundation, you've heard a lot of this before. So what I'm going to do is just give two examples, and they're illustrations that appeared in the book I wrote about love, The Wicked Truth About Love. So they're not as great as slides as they are as illustrations in a book, but I will help you read the little words there. This is what I call the talent for becoming triangle. So what we're seeing here is down here is the child. This is the subject of this diagram. And here's a child, a little boy, whose deepest desire, really what he's born with, is this talent to become a grown-up. That's what kids do. That's what their facility is. They absorb the world around them, the culture that they're born into, and they become adults in that culture. And this little boy is looking to his dad, as all little boys do, to see what does the grown-up look like? This is unconscious. I'm using conscious language, but this is going on unconsciously. He's looking towards his dad, and he sees that it seems like Dad is a huge baseball fan. Dad loves baseball, right? So the little boy equates being a baseball fan with being Dad. And so he imitates his father's desire for baseball. He's not born loving baseball. And my apologies to all baseball fans out there. There's nothing intrinsically desirable about baseball, except that it conveys something to this boy because of the equation he's making between the being of his father and baseball. Okay? So, another quick example. Here's a 20-something guy who doesn't possess the animal magnetism he wishes he had. He sees someone who just seems to be surrounded by women all the time, and you know what this guy loves? He loves Ferraris. So this fellow, and again, unconsciously, this is nothing we're doing with intention, with conscious intention, but he's making a association, an equation between this kind of being, this sexiness, whatever he's imputing to this guy, and the object of desire of this guy. And so he imitates the desire for the car. Not because there's anything intrinsically valuable about a Ferrari. Sorry to Ferrari lovers. It is because this guy likes it that he likes it. Okay? If this guy drove a tractor, he'd drive a tractor. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not about the object. It's about the being that this guy possesses, that he wants to possess. It's about becoming. It's about becoming something. A lot of people, when they hear this, don't like it because it goes against your sense of autonomy and being fully in charge and being your own person. And what do you mean I just like things because other people like them? I don't go along with the crowd, you know, that sort of thing. It's a very un-American thing to say that our desires come from outside of us. It goes against that myth of the cowboy kind of thing. But the truth is that if we didn't have this talent for becoming, or to use the academic phraseology, if our desires weren't mimetic, if we didn't learn them, if we didn't imitate them, mimetic just means imitating. If we were born with them, we would be still at the level of instinctual behavior. Okay? Instincts are, you can think about it, desires already attached to objects, right? So animals, you know, a squirrel doesn't decide whether it's going to collect acorns or donuts. It collects acorns, right? It doesn't decide whether it's going to live in a condo or a tree. It lives in the hole in the tree. It just, there's no choice there, right? So because the objects of our desires are not fixed, we we are freed from instinctual behavior. And so creativity and innovation become possible. Right? This is what it means to be human. Learning and transmission of culture can take place. That's what learning is. Learning is passing on non-instinctual behaviors to the next generation. And that isn't possible until you're free from instincts and until you can learn through imitation. Till you can, that can be absorbed and passed on, right? And another benefit of this talent for becoming is that we are dependent, this is a fact of it, that we're dependent on one another to know who we are and what we desire. And that means that we're incredibly open to the influence of one another, which is what makes love possible. So without that openness to one another, you know, the sociability aspect of human nature would not be there, nor would the potential for love. Now, there are pitfalls as well to this talent for becoming, and they're going to be illustrated real well for us in the movie. Benefits and pitfalls, but if we're learning what to desire from one another, we can come into conflict because shared desires will lead to conflict over an object if it's in short supply. Right? And therefore, the one who's teaching us what to desire can become an obstacle to its fulfillment. Because we're incredibly open to the influence of others, we can mistake the desires of others for our own. We can take their desires on even when they're not in our best interests. We'll see that massively displayed in this movie. And one of the most important pitfalls is not really about the talent for becoming, but that we deny that we have it. When we deny that we're dependent on another to know who we are, then we're going to come into rivalry with them. We're going to view them as only the obstacle side of this relationship rather than the model. We won't see what we owe them, and we're going to get into conflict with them. And we're going to see this very well displayed as well. And I'm just going to give you a quick example from the movie here. The central plot of the movie is the bishop, played by David Niven, expertly played by David Niven, wants to build a cathedral. And knowing what we know now about desire, when someone is presented this way with this massive desire for something, we, as intelligent viewers of the movie, will ask, where did this desire come from? And because it's leading him into all sorts of conflicts in his life. So, as we watch the movie, I want you to look for two things. One is, how do all the characters, and not just the main players, so the problem and the solution are both explained through mimetic or shared desires. The bit players react to Dudley, to the angel, and what is Dudley doing to get that reaction out of them? So especially at the very beginning of the movie, pay close attention to how Dudley is presented. And then, how does the truth that desire is mimetic or shared help explain the bishop's predicament, the problem that he's in, and Dudley's strategy in helping him?